first reaction out of the theater to this film. What did I just watch? What is up, everybody? Random Random Man here, bringing you my review for Hurry Up Tomorrow in one take. Yes, I got back from seeing this film about an hour ago, and I wanted to just get all of my thoughts out there because I do have quite a bit to say about this movie, and doing so outside while it is nice out and the sun is out. The sun's gonna probably be coming and going across this video, and instead of walking around and doing laps in my backyard, I technically still am, but I am here under the pergola next to my house and going around this table, if you can see right there. Yeah, it is dirty. We should clean it for summer because it is basically summer. It's the summer movie going season, at least, and yep, there goes the sun. But here we go. Hurry Up Tomorrow. So this is a psychological thriller that also serves as the companion piece to the album of the same name by Abel the Weeknd Tesfaye. And it depicts him as a fictionalized version of himself, an insomniac musician who's on the verge of a mental breakdown, who gets pulled into an existential odyssey by a strange, mysterious fan. That's basically the sum up of what this movie is in a synopsis. And going into this movie, I was looking forward to it, and one of the chief reasons is that I am a fan of The Weeknd. As a musician, you know, as far back as I remember, like, you know, his songs for the past decade or so have really been playing all the time on the radio. In my own personal playlists, you know, I would play his music and stuff. And, you know, his last three albums in particular, I mean, from this decade so far, they are specifically an arc for him as The Weeknd. After Hours, which of course features the hit songs Blinding Lights and Save Your Tears, to name a couple. Dawn FM, which features tracks like Gasoline and Sacrifice, and Hurry Up Tomorrow, which came out earlier this year. And of course, I've listened to this album prior to seeing the film, and I did enjoy it. It's not my favorite of these three in particular, rounding out this trilogy, but this also signifies his end as the Weeknd moniker. He's not retiring, but he is just not gonna be doing music under that name anymore. So that's interesting to see. But in any sense, yeah, again, I'm a big fan of his music, and he made this movie while doing the album, or at least in conjunction with it, as far as I know. And another big reason I was looking forward to this film was the co-writer, editor, and director, and that is Trey Edward Schultz. His last two movies before this, 2017's It Comes at Night and 2019's Waves, I both am a big fan of. I really liked It Comes at Night, and I loved Waves. That was one of my favorite movies from that year. And as a filmmaker, he experiments in framing and certain other things in terms of narrative storytelling, and that was one big hook for me to see this movie. Also, the other two big cast members in this film. So yeah, all that coming together, I saw this thing in theaters where it is only currently available. And starting out with the cast and their performances, we have Abel Tesfaye, as he is credited here, not The Weeknd, but he, again, is playing a fictionalized version of himself. And with him here, this is not his first time acting. It's his feature film debut in terms of acting. But previously, a couple years ago, he co-created and starred in HBO's The Idol, where he plays a musician there as well, also a cult leader of sorts. I gotta be honest, like, I couldn't get past the first two episodes of that series. I mean, it was just a bunch of nothing, at least from what I saw of it. Lily Rose Depp as the other main lead in that, I thought she was great, and of course she proved that she really is further great as an actress, at least in my opinion. In Robert Eggers' Nosferatu from last year, I thought she was Oscar worthy there. What was not Oscar worthy was Tesfaye's acting, as yeah, I mean, at first I thought, oh, this is the first time he's acting really on camera, and like that's limited in his area because he's mostly a musician. here in Hurry Up Tomorrow, I think similar attributes apply because, the cadences he has down with his facial expressions, I think, are there, and they're literally expressed on screen, on camera, when he is giving some specific moments. But then his line delivery with dialogue that he wrote himself too, or at least co-wrote, because he co-wrote this film on top of also being a producer. Yeah, the execution of it I thought could have been better tweaked or tightened. There's already this one clip circling around social media where he's yelling at another character and he's getting mocked for it, and it kind of reminded me of how Harry Styles, another pop star turned actor, was getting flack for his acting in 2022's Don't Worry Darling. And I'm like, come on guys, first off, don't be recording it in the movie theater, and then secondly, like, yeah, you know that they are not actors first, even if they're trying to be. Styles was great in 2017's Dunkirk with a minimal dialogue kind of role there, and that was an ensemble piece, and with Tesfaye in Hurry Up Tomorrow just playing himself, yeah, I mean, I see shades of what he's trying to do there because this is his story he's trying to tell, but I don't think it landed completely. But the other two main players in this movie for acting, Jenna Ortega, my wife, yes, by the way, she is my wife. We got that? All right, cool. Ortega plays the aforementioned strange, mysterious fan who runs into The Weeknd, and they both strike up a connection. Her name is Anima, her character. And she is going through her own thing as well, too. Like I said, The Weeknd, his fictionalized version of himself, he's going through just basically a big crashing out phase. His girlfriend left him. She's played by Riley Keough. And then we have, on a similar kind of note, Ortega's character, Anima, is just like, she's going through it as well, too. We see what she does in one of the first sequences of the film. Then these two run into each other, and yeah, they strike up a connection, and then it turns more dicey with it. And, Ortega, I think, is probably the best performer of this film. I'm not just saying that because, I'm a big fan of her, clearly, but I think that she was on the wavelength that the movie was trying to express, or at least the best way in how her character was written, from my interpretation, because she's insecure as well, just like The Weeknd is in his own movie, and then them together, and it becomes volatile. It was already volatile on their own to begin with, but then coming together, it's like, oh, okay, that's what the movie is trying to go for. And the other big player here is Barry Keoghan. I've heard his name pronounced both ways, but Barry K, let's call him that. Barry K, he plays Lee, the manager to The Weeknd, and he does well. I mean, his character is kind of one who is like pressuring The Weeknd, I guess you could say. At least like that's what the few bits of backstory and dialogue we get with how their history was together. And these sirens. I hope whoever's involved is okay. Jesus. This is what I get. Yep, there we go. All right. Like I've said before, this is what I get for doing this video outside and in one take. But anyway, yeah. Barry K, does well here, and then just what he's trying to do, but it's mainly the show between The Weeknd and Jenna Ortega here, and Ortega, I think, basically comes out unscathed, but not Tesfaye himself acting as himself. And then we get into like basically what the narrative of this movie is. Again, The Weeknd co-wrote this movie. Trey Edward Schultz, the director, is also another one of the co-writers here. And you can tell it's trying to explore a lot of themes. It's trying to explore a bunch of like very sensitive subjects, and Jesus, more sirens. It's trying to explore, at least in how we see The Weeknd depicted here. He is just, really going through it in terms of one, his ex-girlfriend leaving him, as I said, him also losing his voice, and Jesus, all these sirens. Okay, but yeah, he's also losing his voice. One of the first tracks on the Hurry Up Tomorrow album itself is referencing how he can't sing, and that lasts about 12 seconds. I think that same audio on the song is in the movie. Again, I believe these two projects were done together, and with that, yeah, you see just how he is portraying himself in this way. And when he eventually meets Anima and they're together, the movie then shifts feel. I think it shifts its kind of feel after they're together and they have this whole sequence after this one concert moment. Then the movie becomes darker than it already is. I mean, we're already going into like the very murky echoes of Tesfaye's mind, and then it becomes something that I've seen the movie get a lot of flack for. And this movie has been just utterly panned from what I've seen. I mean, the last time I checked, it has like a 14% or 13% on Rotten Tomatoes and a 30 out of 100 on Metacritic. I mean, so yeah, this thing's getting lambasted left and right because it's considered a vanity project for The Weeknd. It's egomaniacal, egotistical, just so vain for him to do all that. It's self-indulgent, yada, yada, yada. I didn't think of this movie that way until the movie shifted. Like I said, it went in a certain direction. It went in a certain direction that I was like, okay, it looks like he is glazing himself in a way, at least in terms of how his music is connected into all of this. And it also, with that main sequence, it turns into like a Misery type of esque narrative. Misery as in Stephen King's Misery, with Ortega and Tesfaye's characters together. And that is when I, one, didn't expect Ortega to do something in this movie with what her character does. And then two, again, the movie is working with not too much depth, even though it's like exploring all these ideas that I, in some ways, do relate to. I mean, there's a lot of alienation, loneliness, kind of like insecurities that are delved into. I mean, what person hasn't, at least thought about that or gone through that? Of course, this is in the context of Tesfaye himself being a big pop star and trying to do this as a more intimate kind of narrative. But then the way it all lands, I don't think it lands well, or at least it lands in a way that I could take away much from this, aside from the kind of sensory experience the movie was giving me in the first place. Which brings me into the directing and all-around helming of this film by Trey Edward Schultz. He not only directed, he also edited this film. And the way it is cut and just how the focus he puts in here, I do think this is a technically well-made movie. The movie was only made for $15 million, and, it looks a lot better than some other big-budget movies that I've seen from this year so far. Just seeing how the camera is moving. One of the opening scenes of this movie is this long take, and then like what he does in his past movies, Schultz plays around with aspect ratios here, whether we see the frame going bigger from the middle all the way out, or the black bars are at the top and bottom of the screen. It plays with the whole 16:9 aspect ratio. Then it goes with having black bars on the sides or in the tops and bottoms. And I think that helped me be immersed in the movie, on top of how there's music by The Weeknd all over the place in here. I mean, of course, there's music from the Hurry Up Tomorrow album that's here, and then there's additional music, the original score by Daniel Lopatin, who is known for doing scores for the Safdie brothers, in particular the Uncut Gem score. That was fantastic. The movie itself is also fantastic. When you hear some of that in here, also mixed in with Tesfaye's music, I thought it helped bring it in. And then the sound design too, because this movie is really driven by music. Johnny Byrne, one of the two guys who won Best Sound at the Oscars last year for The Zone of Interest, worked on this too. And then, yeah, I saw this at just a general screening. Like, it was nothing too fancy. It wasn't Dolby or anything like that. It was just a regular digital projection screening at one of my local theaters. It still got me into it. And with seeing and hearing everything that's going on, even the cinematography, like I said, there's the movement in the way this film goes with how the camera is going. A lot of reds and blues are played with in the color palette, like with the previous film Schultz directed. There's the tracking 360 shots inside cars that we see, although it's more used here. And then like the one sequence after the opening concert sequence, we just see The Weeknd partying with other characters, and it's very in your face. It's very abrasive. Even the movie at the top gives you a warning, like if you're photosensitive or if you're epileptic. That had a lot of flashing images and just inserts and other things like that really made you overstimulated on purpose. And I think that was the intention. And I think that is what I feel The Weeknd and company were going for with this movie. But then throwing in the kind of narrative that they threw in here, I don't think it mixed completely with the effect or intent of like what we're trying to see, because you can tell it's an exercise in him exploring themes and also trying to like make it coincide with what he's done musically so far. Again, he has this trilogy of albums round out him not being known as the Weeknd anymore, and it's tough for me to fully say how the movie landed on me, because I do think that there are some big pros here, but a lot of what the movie is getting knocked for, I do agree with to some degree. But ultimately, you know, I think this movie was okay. I thought the movie was okay. Again, I think it's a technically well-made movie. The way it runs, I will admit, like around the middle, or just after the second act, maybe in between the second and third act, I was feeling the running time. It runs at about an hour and 45 minutes, and you know, after all that we saw at first, and then Ortega and Tesfaye's characters meeting, you know, the movie went somewhere at first, but then again, like I said, it shifts to a certain archetype that I was like, okay, now the movie's not really doing much with its substance, and that's what I would describe the movie overall. Like, if I had to like sum it up in some words here, just to quote my 10-word reaction that I always post on Facebook after seeing a movie before I review it here, I think it is an overstimulating psychological exercise expressing existentialism with little substance, along the lines of what I said there. That's basically how I'd sum up this movie, and it is psychological. And one of the few glowing reviews I saw for this movie described this as a David Lynchian fever dream, which I know that's going to be sacrilegious to some people. May David Lynch rest in peace. Though there is one sequence that did remind me of that. It goes horror all of a sudden at one point, and it feels like it was Lynchian, or just felt like something that was really out there for being out there. And then that same review also said that this is basically Purple Rain for the Euphoria generation. And I'm like, okay, yeah, I would describe this movie on paper as that, but of course the quality and just the intended effect of it is not the same, because these kinds of music movies that are companions to albums are not exactly intended to be full-on narratives, even with one that is there. So yeah, again, it is tough for me to really sum up what I thought of Hurry Up Tomorrow. I think that all that is here, it's windy, all that is here as the makings of something that was more intended to be an experiment or experience. Experimental experience, I think. And I think, again, a lot of this, like just going on paper or in concept, I think that's what the movie is executing. But in intention, and I think in a lot of ways with what Tesfaye is contributing here, he knows what he's doing musically, but I don't think in terms of like being a storyteller, he has it down packed. And Trey Edward Schultz as a filmmaker here, you know, him collaborating together with The Weeknd, you know, that's a smart move, smart idea. I mean, Prince, for the aforementioned Purple Rain, he did win an Oscar for that. May he also rest in peace. The Weeknd for sure is not going to get any awards nominations, or at least not the major prestige ones for this, not at all. But with this, you know, for all that I've said and more, I guess you could say I'm a bit biased because I am a fan of him musically. You know, I'm teetering more on the slightly positive end of this movie. And because I also do not think this is like the worst movie I've seen all year, unlike what reviews have said. The last movie I reviewed before this, I think is worse. And then the movie that coined the phrase chicken jockey all over the world for people to know, I think is the worst movie of the year so far too. And yeah, like I said, I think that Hurry Up Tomorrow is just okay. For fans of The Weeknd, curiosity might get the better of them and they'll go see this thing. Otherwise, of course, they'll wait for this to hit home. Otherwise, everyone else, like, I think other people are just going to straight up hate this movie. Their patience is going to be tested. If you're not a fan of him, of course, you're not going to like this movie. But just, yeah, there is all that. And for me, I'm going to go slightly fresh on this movie anyway, because, you know, I do think it is better made than a few other things that I've seen this year, and I get what it was trying to go for, even if it didn't completely land. So, with all of that being said, my final verdict for Hurry Up Tomorrow is 3 out of 5 stars. Thank you all, as always, for watching. Be sure to like this video, comment on what you thought of Hurry Up Tomorrow. Social media links in the description. Subscribe to my channel for more, and I'll catch you on the next movie review.